When you say the end of dinosaurs, most people immediately imagine a catastrophic scene. A huge asteroid hurtling towards Earth, a fiery scow, explosions, smoke, and then silence. In school and in documents, we are often presented that death came immediately, like a blow from the blue. But what if it wasn't so clear-cut? What if some dinosaurs survived longer than previously thought? Did they all really disappear within days, weeks, months? Or did some of them continue to survive in corners of the world about which we know very little? This topic touches not only on the most famous mass extinction in the history of the planet, but also on the boundaries of what we know about the distant past and how we interpret it. Get ready to travel deep into a period when the Earth was shaken to its very foundations, and together we will try to understand whether dinosaurs could have defied fate a little longer. One of the most disturbing discoveries of recent decades are dinosaur fossils that have been found in layers geologically located just above the mass extinction line. This boundary is known as the KPG boundary, i.e., the transition between the Cretaceous and Paleogene periods when the asteroid impact occurred. In some areas of the world, especially in North and South America, skeletal fragments of non-avian dinosaurs have been recorded, which, according to dating, date back to the time after this event. However, the scientific community is divided on this point, with some paleontologists arguing that these findings are the result of geological shifts or strata disturbances, while others see them as possible evidence that at least a few individuals of dinosaur species lived to a new era, albeit briefly. There is a possibility that smaller species, or those that lived in seclusion, were able to survive the extreme conditions that prevailed after the impact. Dark skies without sun, sharp cooling, and collapse of food chains. However, these individuals would face a world without vegetation, with a minimum of available food, and in a completely devastated ecosystem. If some of them really managed to survive, it wasn't for long. Fossil footprints from the impact show that even the most resistant of them succumbed within a few millennia. But this hypothetical survival period, albeit short on the scale of geological epochs, calls into question the notion of a total and immediate apocalypse. Scientists began to speculate that some specific regions may have served as refuges for life after the disaster. So-called embryonic ecosystems. These were areas that were less affected by the impact and subsequent consequences, such as polar regions or deep river systems. A limited number of species could survive in such places, provided by a milder climate, stable humidity, or food availability. This idea reinforces the theory that not all parts of the world were affected equally, and therefore, the time of extinction could vary from region to region. Small herbivores, smaller predators, or representatives of specialized ecological groups could survive in such locations. The length of their existence would depend on their ability to adapt to dramatic changes and survive in isolation. In some models, it is even assumed that several generations of these dinosaurs survived before they were finally pushed out by the newly emerging mammalian species. This process could take up to several tens of thousands of years, which is fascinating from a human perspective. Dinosaurs may not have disappeared in the snap of a finger, but in a long and painful process of decline. Geologists and paleontologists use isotope analyses and other geochemical methods to determine the age of the layers in which fossils are found. It is these tools that indicate that the layers above the KPG interface contain trace elements that indicate the presence of life even after the disaster. The problem is that geological processes can erode the layers, rearrange or contaminate material from other periods. Therefore, any claim about the survival of non-avian dinosaurs after an asteroid impact is subject to extreme scrutiny and must be supported by extremely thorough analysis. Some finds of bones or teeth may be the result of so-called redeposit, a phenomenon in which the remains of extinct animals have been relocated to younger strata by erosion. This means that what at first glance appears to be evidence of longer survival may in fact be just a deception caused by natural processes. The scientific community is therefore in a thin strip between cautious optimism and strict skepticism, with each new discovery being evaluated with the utmost rigor. While most non-avian dinosaurs probably died out relatively soon after the asteroid impact, part of this ancient group survived in a different form, like birds. Modern ornithology and paleontology agree that birds are direct descendants of one of the lineages of theropod dinosaurs. These smaller, lighter, and probably warm-blooded creatures had an advantage over their massive relatives. They could fly, had a high metabolism, and were able to use hidden environments to survive. In addition, they appear to have been omnivores, which allowed them to better face sudden food shortages. Birds are the only dinosaurs that survived the mass extinction and successfully spread to all corners of the world. Although they are not classified as non-avian dinosaurs, their lineage is so closely related to Cretaceous dinosaurs that many experts claim that dinosaurs as a group never completely died out. They just changed. So, this argument extends the concept of dinosaur survival beyond the geological moment, and thus provides a completely new perspective on the very meaning of the word extinction. Mass extinctions after an asteroid impact often appear to be a sudden event from a geological point of view, but from an ecological perspective, it could have been stretched out over time. Some areas where conditions were not completely fatal may have experienced delayed extinctions, in which local dinosaur populations slowly disappeared as the environment deteriorated and ecosystems failed to recover. This theory supports the notion that the end was not a one-time cataclysm, but rather a long-term death of the world, as it was known to the Mesozoicians. Paleoecological studies show that some species of plants and invertebrates survived a little longer, which could mean that their consumers, that is, certain species of dinosaurs, also survived in their habitats until their complete collapse. This extinction phase could last for hundreds to thousands of years and would have significant local differences. Places with a milder climate, water sources, or protected relief may have been the last islands of dinosaur existence before they were swallowed up by the newly emerging mammalian fauna. The finding that some dinosaurs may have survived at least a little longer than traditionally assumed also has implications for how we think about the world today. Mass extinctions are no longer understood as just an abrupt end, but as a complex and multidimensional process that can be stretched across time and space. Such an interpretation also adds new depth to the understanding of modern ecological crises, where species extinction can be long-term, gradual, and often imperceptible until it is too late. In many ways, current climate change, habitat destruction, and biodiversity loss can be compared to the late dinosaur period. Even then, it seemed that the world was changing gradually until the moment when the tipping point came. The study of the last dinosaurs after the impact provides us not only with answers to questions from the past, but also with warnings for the future. If even such dominant creatures as dinosaurs could succumb to ecological collapse, what does that say about our own vulnerability? One of the most interesting lines of research is the consideration of whether isolated geographic areas with different microclimates could have offered refuge for surviving dinosaurs. Islands, mountain valleys, river deltas, or deep inland forests may have had slightly more stable temperatures and better availability of water and food than open plains. Such places could act as temporary pockets of life, where some of the fauna took refuge from the devastation of the rest of the planet. Scientific models suggest that geographic isolation can extend the survival of a species by thousands of years, albeit in a limited population. This principle is now well known in some species of mammals or birds, but in the case of dinosaurs, it would be a much more complicated phenomenon. Without sufficient genetic diversity, each such isolated population would face genetic decline, which would soon make their survival impossible. Still, the theory of geographic isolation gives a chance that some species of dinosaurs survived in the seclusion of the world a little longer than we could ever imagine. One of the most heated debates in modern paleontology is between proponents of the sudden collapse theory and advocates of the gradual extinction scenario. The former claim that the asteroid impact had such an immediate and global effect that most dinosaur species became extinct almost immediately, within days to years. These scientists rely on extensive layers of iridium, evidence of firestorms and global darkness that has interrupted photosynthesis. On the other side of the spectrum, there are those who believe in a mosaic-like course of extinction. They argue that while the impact caused a mass crisis, species survived much longer in some areas. For example, in places with slower collapse of plant communities, or in areas with less intense consequences. Both sides have their evidence, but consensus is still lacking. What is changing, however, is the tone of the discussion. We are no longer asking if, but where, for how long, and under what conditions dinosaur life could have survived the end of its era. Over the past decades, there have been several finds that have shaken the scientific world. These include fossils, footprints, or egg remains, which, according to some measurements, date back to the period after the impact. However, this evidence is extremely controversial because if its authenticity were to be confirmed, it would mean a reassessment of the entire mass extinction model. A large part of the professional public rejects these finds, often due to the unclear context of the finding layer or problems with dating. Even so, there are research teams that have repeatedly tried to prove that some species of dinosaurs survived not only hundreds, but perhaps thousands of years longer than stated in textbooks. While some of this evidence may be the result of geological errors, others still remain unexplained, and thus keep the flame burning for this fascinating question. Humanity tends to interpret history through dramatic and bright moments. The myth of the sudden demise of the dinosaurs resonates because it corresponds to the human idea of fate, punishment, and break. But, as in many other areas of life, the truth can prove to be much more complex, ambiguous, and scattered over time. To accept the possibility that dinosaurs could have died slowly in isolation without big scenes is to change our view not only of them, but of our own end. From this perspective, examining the survival time of dinosaurs after impact is more than just a scientific matter. It is a mirror of how we perceive death, perseverance, hope, and the demise of civilizations. The theme is not only about the prehistoric world, but also about ourselves. And perhaps that is why interest in this question persists today, more than 65 million years after the impact. An interesting direction of research is the question of whether some specialized species of dinosaurs that led a hidden or nocturnal lifestyle could have survived. After the asteroid impact, the Earth was plunged into darkness for a long time, caused by dust and ash in the atmosphere, which drastically reduced photosynthesis and caused temperatures to drop sharply. In such conditions, species dependent on light and heat would not stand a chance. But what about those who were oriented by status, lived in burrows, or were active mainly at night? Paleontologists examine the skulls of some small theropods and ornithopods, which indicate enlarged eyeballs or cavities suitable for excellent hearing and smell. If these signs really indicate adaptation to nocturnal or underground life, then it is possible that individuals equipped in this way survive the longest. Although direct evidence is lacking, such a notion extends survival beyond the environment and shifts attention to behavior and ecological strategies as the main factors for survival. Gaps in the fossil record are one of the biggest problems in paleontology. There's no guarantee that what we do not see did not exist. In some parts of the world, complete layers of sediment are missing or have never been sufficiently explored. It is in these unexplored areas that clues could be hidden that would confirm the longer-lasting survival of some dinosaur species. The absence of evidence is not proof of absence. This rule is doubly true in paleontology. It is not impossible that in sediments that have not yet been uncovered or in which no one has yet searched, there are fossil records of dinosaurs that survived a few thousand years longer. Science is advancing slowly in this regard, but every year new finds are added that shake up existing certainties. The hope that further expeditions will provide key answers is still alive, and with it, the possibility that the story of the extinction of the dinosaurs is not yet complete. In recent years, paleogenetics has also been involved in the research of prehistoric creatures, the science of examining the remnants of genetic material from ancient fossils. Although the complete DNA of dinosaurs has not yet been found, Research into protein residues, collagen or imprints of cell structures is moving our knowledge into areas that were previously only dreamed of. These methods could theoretically reveal which dinosaurs survived longer, or how close they were to modern bird and reptile species. With the help of this technology, it may be possible to determine whether there really was an evolutionary continuity between late Cretaceous and early Paleogene animals. If genetic sequences were found in post-impact organisms that bear the specific